The top stories tonight in Y News. The government will provide $200 or more than 10,000 pesos cash aid for Filipino migrant workers in Hong Kong who have tested positive for COVID-19. One person died and two were seriously injured when a helicopter owned by the Philippine National Police crashed in the Real town of Quezon this morning. U.S. intelligence sources say that Russian military has been ordered to move forward with an attack against Ukraine. Queen Elizabeth II has tested positive for COVID-19 and is experiencing mild cold-like symptoms. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, February 21st, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country, in the Philippines, and other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. First in the news, the Department of Labor and Employment refuted reports that a number of overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong were terminated from their jobs after testing positive for COVID-19. The Philippine government, meanwhile, will provide cash aid to COVID-19 hit OFWs. Rosalie Cos reports.
Hong Kong is amid its worst COVID-19 crisis due to more transmissible Omicron variant. According to the International Labor Affairs Bureau of the Philippine Department of Labor and Employment, 41 overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong tested positive for the virus as of February 20, 2022. 2 are admitted in the hospital, 8 have recovered while most are in quarantine facilities. Majority of the COVID-19 cases have already finished their contract, while only a few have existing contracts. In contrast to reports, the Bureau said no infected OFWs in Hong Kong with existing contract was terminated by their employers.
Yung mga nababalita na nasak or na-terminate, hindi po. Dahil tapos na po yung kanilang kontrata, yung 2 years contract. So pauwi na po sila, kaya tapos na. Ang iba naman ay walang visa, so hindi rin po kasi po pwede na magpatuloy ka sa trabaho doon nang wala kang visa.
Meanwhile, according to Acting Presidential Spokesperson and Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA provided $200 or more than 10,000 pesos each for COVID-19 positive OFW. The same amount was given by the Philippine Overseas Labor Office or POLO to those who have already recovered from COVID-19. The palace official also said the government through POLO immediately provided them with food, hygiene kits, and power banks to allow them to communicate with their loved ones in the Philippines as well as with authorities while waiting for calls from the Center for Health Protection and Hong Kong Labor Department. POLO has already coordinated with a non-government organization to provide a quarantine facility to accommodate several OFWs as well as with Hong Kong Labor Department for transportation arrangements. Currently, there are more than 220,000 overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong and 90% of them are domestic workers. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Infectious disease expert Dr. Ron Jean Solante believes that the elderly or those immunocompromised must still keep masking up even if the face mask mandate will be dropped. The health expert also backs the proposal of placing Metro Manila under Alert Level 1. Aiko Miguel explains why.
The transmission of the Omicron variant of concern, especially its sublineage BA.2, has been drastically decreasing in the Philippines. This is based on the monitoring of infectious diseases expert and vaccine expert panel member Dr. Ron Jean Solante. Dr. Solante believes that the country has surpassed the Omicron surge and the BA.2 infection will also subside when more people will get their booster shot.
Nakikita din natin na ang booster is not as good as that with the primary vaccine series, no? So siguro may kahalong na rin, fatigue. At nakita nila na ang COVID naman ngayon is only mild. So talagang ganun ang pananaw ng iba na pwede din pala kung hindi mag-boost kasi mild lang naman. No? So we need to strengthen our advocacy on the booster because it's something that it can increase our protection against a highly transmissible BA2, especially the vulnerable population.
With a drastic drop of cases and high booster vaccination rate, it is also still possible that in the coming months, wearing a face mask will no longer be required. However, he emphasized that those who belong to the vulnerable population should still mask up.
It's not practical that if we will be taking off our mask, we will include the vulnerable population. I would rather recommend that even if the cases are going down until set to zero, until such time that there's still a community transmission, even how low the numbers is, there's still a possibility that the vulnerable population will be affected. They should be the last that the vaccine or the masking mandate should be lifted.
Earlier, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said the mask mandate won't be lifted anytime soon. Dr. Solante also said the country is ready to de-escalate to alert level 1 in the coming months.
Actually, ang priority ngayon talaga is dapat luwagan na, no? We have the basis naman, like the cases are really significantly going down. Transitioning to a lower alert level, patuloy pa rin ang bakunahan natin. Siguro, na-predict ko yun, aabot pa rin yung 2023 ang bakunahan natin with COVID-19. No? So, March will be a better time to transition to an alert level 1.
Experts advise the public to remain responsible and be extra cautious as the country continue to experience the COVID-19 pandemic. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines recorded 1,427 new cases of novel coronavirus disease or COVID-19, pushing the nationwide case count to 3,653,526. This is lower than Sunday's data of 1,712 new cases. Active cases has dropped to 58,657 or 1.6% of the total number of cases. Among the active cases, 53,326 are mild, 2,845 are moderate, 1,422 are severe, 760 are symptomatic, while 304 are in critical condition. The DOH added that all laboratories were operational on February 19. However, 5 labs were not able to submit their data to the COVID-19 document repository system. On the other hand, the health agency also recorded 3,269 new recoveries, bringing the total number to 3,539,106, or 96.9% of the total number of cases, while 79 more have died from the virus, bringing the death toll to 55,763, or 1.53%. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has topped 424,550,713, while the deaths have surged to 5,888,311, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The United States is the worst hit country with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 78,479,408 and 935,336 respectively. In terms of infections, India follows in the second place with 42,838,524 cases and 512,109 deaths. In terms of deaths, however, Brazil comes second with 533,488 fatalities. The Department of Health, or DOH, is reviewing its strategies to vaccinate more senior citizens against COVID-19. The national government is still facing challenges to convince the elderly to get the jabs. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why live. Yes, Eileen, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. Based on the data of the National Vaccine Operations Center, 2.4 million senior citizens still have not received their first dose of COVID-19 vaccine. NVOC Chair and Department of Health Undersecretary Mirna Cabotaje explains most elderly opt to stay at home than to queue in vaccination sites. Others, meanwhile, have their own personal reasons.
Hindi naman vaccine hesitancy, yung iba, ayaw na. Kasi sabi nila, mamamatay na sila, kung mamamatay, hindi nila naiintindihan na pag sila yung nagkasakit, ma-affect din yung kanilang pamilya.
Aside from the elderly population, the government is also looking into the low vaccination coverage in several areas in Mindanao where majority of the population are Muslims. Undersecretary Cabotaje said they will coordinate with other Muslim countries to come up with effective strategies to convince our Muslim kababayans to get vaccinated.
Kung ang Malaysia at Indonesia na Muslim countries ay mataas yung bakunahan, ano kaya ang pwede pang gawin sa BARM? So we are looking at sharing experiences. Ano ba ang ginawa sa Malaysia at saka sa Indonesia na nagkumbinsi sa ating mga mamamayan na magpabakuna? Pinakamataas na bakuna, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and UAE yata. So these are Muslim countries. So baka hindi totoo yung religious beliefs.
Several strategies to boost vaccination coverage include mobile vaccination sites and house-to-house vaccination.
Ilalapit na natin sa kanila. Yung iba nahihirapan pumunta sa malalayong vaccination sites. So kung ang ginawa ng mga ibang lokal na pamahalaan, nag-house to house, yung iba ay linapit yung tinatawag natin na mobile fixed post, kung saan merong maraming mga senior, doon nila ilalagay yung kanilang bakuna center.
Local governments are also coordinating with senior citizen groups to help in encouraging the elderly to get vaccinated. According to NVOC, there are more than 60 million fully vaccinated Filipinos in the country. The national government still has not announced a schedule for the next national vaccination days. However, they previously discussed about conducting a monthly national vaccination drive to reach the 90 million target by June. William?
Yes, thank you very much. Eileen Cerudo reporting live. And in other news, a policeman died and 2 others were seriously injured when a helicopter owned by the Philippine National Police crashed in Real, Quezon this morning. The PNP has grounded the entire fleet of H-125 Airbus police helicopters while an investigation is underway. Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
Based on initial reports from the Philippine National Police, there was a bad weather condition when a PNP helicopter crashed in Real, Quezon this morning, February 21, 2022. PNP Public Information Office Chief, Police Brigadier General Roderick Augustos Alba says the H-125 Airbus with registry number RP-9710 went down at around 8:05 in the morning in Purok Mayaog, Barangay Pandan, 2 hours after it took off from Manila Domestic Airport in Pasay City. It was on its way to northern Quezon for an administrative mission. The PNP PIO identified the fatality as Patrolman Allen Welona, a crew member, while the injured are Lieutenant Colonel Dexter Vitug, the pilot, and Lieutenant Colonel Michael Miloria, the co-pilot. Vitug and Miloria were brought to the PNP General Hospital in Camp Crame to receive proper medical attention. The PNP has grounded the entire fleet of H-125 Airbus while an investigation is underway in coordination with concerned agencies. The said helicopter was among the brand new aircraft delivered to the PNP in January 2021. Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, defended the Philippine National Police over the arrest of Dr. Natividad Castro, saying police officers were just doing their job. In a statement, DILG Secretary Eduardo Año said police officers were just performing their duties when they served the warrant of arrest issued by the Bayugan City Regional Trial Court against the doctor last Friday. RTC Judge Fernando Pudalan of RTC Branch 7 in Bayugan City, Agusan del Sur, issued the warrant because she is facing criminal charges for kidnapping and serious illegal detention, he added. Castro, an advocate of Lumad communities in Mindanao, was arrested in San Juan City on Friday. She is currently under court custody and detained at the Bayugan City Police Station, where her lawyers can visit her to prepare for her defense, Año said. The DILG chief assured that Castro's rights under the law are respected. For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. Several transport groups appeal for fare increase in public utility jeepney, but the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board explains that they still need to seek the opinion of concerned government agencies prior to any fare hike. Asher Kadapan Jr. reports why.
Changes in the fare matrix of public utility vehicles significantly affect not only the public commuters but also the transportation of goods and services. With this, any fare increase needs to be consulted accordingly to all stakeholders prior to approval of such petition. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board explains this as some transport groups call for fare hike in public utility jeepneys due to the continuous increase in the price of petroleum products. But LTFRB Regional Director Attorney Zona Tamay says it will need to go through a procedure.
Hindi lang po kasi yung i-grant ba yan or i-deny ang pinag-uusapan, but the effect po noong sakaling i-grant nga na for the fare, lalo na pag fare increase, no? Because we are all aware naman po that if nagkakaroon ho ng fare increase, hindi lang yung pamasahe yung apektado. Goods and services that would involve transport of goods or services would definitely be affected as well.
Some transport groups appeal to revert the 10 peso minimum fare of PUJ that was approved by the LTFRB in 2018. This is while the agency resolves their petition of 12 peso minimum fare, which they filed in October of last year, while another petition of 15 peso fare was recently submitted.
Nung bumaba po yung mga halaga ng mga krudo, kami po automatic na nagbabaho. Instead of 10 pesos, ginawa namin 9 pesos yung pamasahe namin. Hinihingi lang po namin for action agad. Sana gumawa na ng ordering LTFRB para naman po pansamantala may taas po may balik namin sa 10 pesos plus yung habang iniintay namin yung petition namin na 12 pesos per increase.
Some jeepney drivers also expressed their appeal to the government as they have been severely affected not only by the oil price hike but also by the pandemic.
Talagang hirap talaga. Oo, tsagaan lang talaga. Hindi po, haba ng pila namin dyan. Kaya kung mag-iskerda kami, wala kami magagawa. Napunta lang sa krudo. Ang hirap, sir. Napupunta lang sa krudo yung bawat ikot namin. Wala na kaming may uwi minsan. 200, 300 na lang po may uwi namin. Kulang na kulang po para sa pang-araw-araw namin nakita, panggastusin.
Some passengers, however, understand a call for fare increase but not for a 15 peso minimum fare.
Marami po kasi mga driver na naghihirap po sa pandemic ngayon. Okay lang po sa atin mag-increase. Kahit mga 11 pesos lang po, okay na po yun.
Ang laki naman. Dito nga lang, nahirapan na ako eh. Dadagdag pa? Ang mahal. Sana maliit lang. Huwag malaki.
The LTFRB is scheduled to conduct a hearing on March 8 regarding the fare hike petitions as well as reverting to the 10 peso minimum fare. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Commission on Elections, or Comelec, says no formal complaint has been filed against any candidate yet over possible breach of health protocols during the campaign period. Dante Amento tells us why.
Comelec spokesperson Director James Jimenez says they are still looking into reports of possible violations of health protocols by candidates in the 2022 elections. But Jimenez clarified no particular national candidate yet has been charged. Under Comelec Resolution 10732, health protocols such as physical distancing and wearing of mask must be observed.
Sa pagkakaalam ko po, wala pang napafailan, but under evaluation na po yung mga reports tungkol dyan.
The poll body also recently reminded all candidates to consider not just their safety but the safety of their supporters.
Ladies and gentlemen, may pandemya pa po. Kaya nga mahalaga yung mga protections na nilalagay natin dyan. Kaya mahalaga yung mga restrictions na inilagay ng Comelec sa in-person campaigning. Totoo po that campaigns do have the potential to facilitate the transmission of COVID-19.
Meanwhile, the National Citizens Movement for Free Elections or NAMFREL has urged President Rodrigo Duterte to immediately appoint the new chairman and 2 commissioners for Comelec. It also asked the chief executive to release to the public the shortlisted candidates for the posts. The group adds it is important to include the public for the sake of a transparent selection process to identify qualified and competent top officials of the commission.
It's very important, no? Dahil one is we want to make sure that the people that are appointed to post, no, are really befitting, no, of that post.
Over 2 months left before the 2022 elections, and yet the president has not appointed for the vacated positions of retired Chairman Sheriff Abbas, Commissioners Rowena Guanzon and Antonio Co. Jr. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Trade Union Congress of the Philippines will support presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and his running mate Sara Duterte Carpio in the 2022 national and local elections. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Trade Union Congress of the Philippines or TUCP spokesperson Alan Tanhusay said the group's decision to endorse presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos and his running mate Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio was reached after it conducted its nationwide consultation with its members. Tanhusay said they will present their labor agenda to Marcos and Mayor Inday Sara and it includes job generation.
Number 1 dito ay kinakailangan mag-generate sila ng 4 milyon na trabaho sa loob ng 1 taon matapos silang maupo sa pwesto.
Also, the group will ask the unit team to give the benefits of healthcare workers.
Ibigay yung special risk allowance ng mga health workers natin, yung kanilang sahod at mga allowances na hinihingi nila mula sa gobyerno.
The group will formally endorse the Marcos Duterte Carpio team and its senatorial ticket either Tuesday or Wednesday.
After the endorsement, we will have a meeting and then we will sit down and discuss yung mga proposal ng TUCP.
TUCP claims currently it has about 1.2 million members nationwide, including those in the formal and informal sector. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Several former lawmakers and government officials have been added to the growing list of individuals backing the presidential bid of Vice President Leni Robredo. According to a political analyst, endorsements still give weight, especially when done by prominent personalities. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
4 former senators and 12 former senior government officials have endorsed Vice President Leni Robredo as their presidential candidate. In a joint statement, the 16 former public officials say they strongly believe that VP Robredo is the most qualified and trustworthy presidential candidate. They add the country deserves a president who is fearless, action-oriented, inclusive, and decisive, which they believe the leadership qualities that VP Robredo has successfully demonstrated in her stint as vice president despite limited resources and, quote, undeserved open hostility from the present administration, end of quote. The former officials appealed to the Filipino people to support VP Robredo in the upcoming elections. Among the signatories are former Senators Rodolfo Biazon, Ramon Magsaysay Jr., Sergio Osmeña, and Wigberto Bobby Tañada. Also supporting VP Robredo's bid are former Cebu City Mayor Tommy Osmeña, former Tourism Secretary Gemma Cruz Araneta, and former Agriculture Secretary Senen Bacani. Earlier, former cabinet secretaries from the administrations of former presidents Fidel Ramos and the late Benigno Noynoy Aquino III and over 100 economists expressed support to Robredo. According to Professor Edmund Tayaw of Ateneo School of Government and Executive Director of Local Government Development Foundation, endorsements can contribute to the candidate's winnability, especially when done by notable personalities. But looking at the recent surveys, Tayaw says some presidential candidates need to do drastic adjustments candidates if they want to remain in the running. In the January Pulse Asia survey, Bongbong Marcos got the first place with 60%, followed by VP Robredo, Senator Manny Pacquiao, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso, and Senator Panfilo Lacson.
Of course, his endorsement still matters a lot. Take note that he remains popular, a president. And not to mention, of course, that if you are endorsed by a sitting president, it's expected that the resources that the government has will somehow contribute to your own resources in your campaign.
Hardin Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate Manny Pacquiao reiterates that PDP-Laban party's decision to endorse any political candidate still needs his approval. JP Nunez will tell us why live. Yes, JP, good evening. Go ahead.
Yes, William, good evening. Presidential candidate Manny Pacquiao reminds his competitor for presidential race Isko Moreno Domagoso as it was openly seeking members of the PDP-Laban for endorsement. Senator Pacquiao exclaims that he is still the party president of PDP-Laban and the final decision is still subject to his approval. Being the standard bearer of Prom D for presidential race, he said the two parties may have allegiance in due time.
Ako naman ang presidente ng PDP-Laban. Kumbaga, ako ang presidente ng Laban, sa akin din yan dadaan lahat. Yung mga ganon. And then also, yung sa Prom D, nagkaroon ng alliance ang PDP at saka Prom D. Pagdating ng panahon, tatawagin yan PDP Prom D.
UNTV News is still trying to get the opinion of presidential candidate Isko Moreno Domagoso on the issue. Meanwhile, Senator Pacquiao believes that there will be a great impact to his campaign if the PDP-Laban, which was divided into factions, will reunite. According to him, they are still coordinating to some of PDP-Laban members for reconciliation.
Ang sinisigap ko ay magkaisa ang lahat ng PDP at Makusi wing ka man o Manny Pacquiao wing ka man ay magkaisa na kasi ang nanghinayang ako dahil nagkahiwa-hiwala yung PDP at naway magkaisa. Makakatulong siguro ng malaki rin. Malaki rin may tulong. Unang-una, nagkaisang PDP, sulit ang PDP. Sa isang bahay kasi, pag nag-aaway, ano man mangyari, kapatid at kapatid pa rin kayo. Magulang at magulang niyo pa rin yan.
Senator Coco Pimentel explains that the other faction, no matter which candidate they endorse, will be an unofficial endorsement of the party.
Niwala nga sila authority to issue CONA. Mawawalan nga ng value yung CONA nila eh. Tapos mag-endorse pa sila, di all the more walang value. Endorse na lang nila as the candidate of Mr. Tusi. But not using the name of the party. Di ba masama kay Isko yun because yun na nga inisyuhan nga ng CONA, unauthorized CONA na yun eh. So how much more an informal endorsement by party hijackers.
That is our latest live. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you. JP Nunez reporting live from Quezon City. Presidential candidate Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso earned support from residents of Cotabato and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARMM. Thousands of residents in Cotabato City warmly welcomed the Aksyon Demokratiko standard bearer together with their vice presidential bet, Doc Willie Ong, and their senatorial candidates. On their second day of campaigning in Mindanao, Mayor Domagoso personally visited BARMM Interim Chief Minister Ahud Al-Haj Murad Ibrahim, where he was virtually endorsed as incoming president. Mayor Dumagoso in turn vows to strictly adhere to the provisions of BARMM laws and to continue what President Rodrigo Duterte has started for them. Tomorrow, the Acción Democrático Party is set to conduct their election campaign activities in General Santos City.
Ang aming party ay Manila Mayor Isko, our incoming president. Welcome sa Morong Government.
More quarantine hotels in Central Visayas have opened to international and local tourists. Lane Moreno reports why.
After more than 2 years of being used as quarantine facilities to more than 100,000 returning residents and overseas Filipinos, 60 hotels in Central Visayas may now serve as accommodation for local and foreign tourists. This is part of the Department of Tourism's preparation for the influx of tourists, especially those coming from abroad, in order to slowly revive tourism and the economy.
In the past 2 years, we've been busy first with the quarantine. We had around 60 plus hotels who did quarantine. And now we transition from the income that our stakeholders have been getting from this quarantine multi-use properties to tourism.
Only a few people in the region need to be isolated due to the decline of COVID cases. Fully vaccinated local and foreign tourists and returning residents are no longer required to undergo quarantine. The DOT remind all establishments to follow strict protocols in their area.
So it's about the product. Once the product is there, then they will come. But now, because of the pandemic, safety is part of the product. We have a high percentage rate of vaccination in our tourist workers and accredited establishments.
In 2019, Central Visayas recorded 9 million tourist arrivals. Meanwhile, the DOT will be awarding the hotels for their volunteer work to help the government amid the pandemic. Lelaine Moreno, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Several private sectors urged the national government to require booster cards upon entering business establishments. Janice Inhente explains why.
Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship and Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion believes that COVID-19 booster shot will help prevent a new surge of COVID-19 cases in the country. That is why they urge the government that it is time to make the booster dose vaccination mandatory to safely reopen the economy. Concepcion cited that in the United States, the residents' mobility are close to normal for those who are boosted with COVID-19 vaccines.
We have to start planning to implement the booster cards the moment the time is up. The vaccination program with the government and the private sector has to continue until such a time that we can clearly say that the pandemic is totally gone.
Concepcion reiterates the need for the government to speed up the vaccination rollout to continuously ease the COVID-19 restrictions. He pointed out that it is high time to fully reopen the commerce, trade, and tourism of the country.
We're not the only country that's opening up. No? I mean, everybody's opening up. So it's a race. No? Remember, we compete against other countries. No? So I'm optimistic. We really have no choice. We have to grow the economy. We have to make use of this time while cases are down to really push the economy to move up. We are really pushing that all sectors open up. It's about time that we open up.
Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For the news abroad, U.S. officials' sources points to the initiation of Russia's attack on Ukraine as orders were relayed to Russian commanders confirming the attack. Ruth Bahe will tell us the details live. Good evening, Ruth.
Yes, Elsie, good evening.
The U.S. intelligence information regarding Russia's plan was received last week and proves that U.S. all the while has been observing if Russia has entered their final stages of preparation for the attack. On Friday, U.S. President Joe Biden announced that he believed Russian President Vladimir Putin would continue to invade Ukraine, making the decision to do so, but when they do, severe sanctions will be put in place.
The United States and our allies and partners will support the Ukrainian people. We will hold Russia accountable for its actions. The West is united and resolved. We're ready to impose severe sanctions on Russia if it further invades Ukraine. But I say again, Russia can still choose diplomacy. It is not too late to de-escalate and return to the negotiating table.
The Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov agreed with Secretary of State Antony Blinken to meet in Europe to negotiate a diplomatic solution. However, if Russia chooses war, this will not be up for discussion.
Russia agreed that Secretary of State Blinken and Foreign Minister Lavrov should meet on February 24th. February 24th in Europe. But if Russia takes military action before that date, we'll be clear that they have slammed the door shut on diplomacy. They will have chosen a war, and they will pay a steep price for doing so.
Ukraine remains heavily surrounded by Russian troops with over 150,000 troops around its borders. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin detailed that the troops are moving into position, which will allow them to conduct an attack. Currently, there have not yet been any attacks made. However, there has been an escalation in ceasefire violations by Russian-backed fighters, where they shelled a Ukrainian kindergarten, putting the blame on Ukraine and naming it a genocide. Elsie?
Ruth, will the United States be sending troops over to support Ukraine's defense against Russia?
Well, Elsie, during President Biden's update, he mentioned that the U.S. will not be sending troops to Ukraine. However, will continue to support the nation by providing $650 million to support Ukraine defense system. The U.S. also provided $500 million for humanitarian aids and will add a $1 billion loan to strengthen the economic resilience of Ukraine. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Ruth Bahe, for that live report. Queen Elizabeth II has tested positive to COVID-19 ahead of her Platinum Jubilee celebrations to mark her 7 decades on the throne. Marvi Delphine will give us the details live. Yes, Marvi?
Elsie, it has not been confirmed how the Queen contracted the virus, but there have been speculations around her health following a meeting with her son Prince Charles, who tested positive on February 10. A number of people have also reportedly tested positive at the Windsor Castle, suggesting a wider outbreak at the Queen's residence. According to royal commentators, the Queen has been inevitably interacting with staff, who have also been mixing with the broader public, increasing the chances of the Queen being exposed to the virus. The royal family stated that the Queen, who was fully vaccinated with a booster, was experiencing mild cold-like symptoms. Public reaction includes fear and concern due to the Queen's age, while others are confident she and the whole family will recover. The Buckingham Palace stated that she will continue to receive medical attention and follow all appropriate guidelines. Elsie?
Thank you, Marvi Delphine, reporting live from Australia. Thousands of aged care workers are furloughed because of COVID-19, and for this reason, the federal government is recruiting volunteers to fill staff shortages in aged care. The Health Department has asked Volunteering Australia to sign up thousands of people to answer phones, talk with residents, brush their hair, and help them exercise and restock masks, freeing up overworked staff for showering, wound dressing, and medication management. Under the plan, an initial 2,000 volunteers will be vetted and receive basic training in the use of personal protective equipment before being sent into aged care homes struggling with staff shortages, with potential to scale up to more than 18,000 volunteers. A spokesman for Aged Care Services said the volunteer drive was an extension of the existing community visitor scheme and was not intended to replace existing staff, with volunteer tasks limited to non-direct care. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of James, chapter 1, verse 25. It says, "But whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed." And those are the reasons behind the news, February 21, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold, and because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.